From the land of not-so-frozen lakes, this is 10,000 Takes, brought to you by Minnesota Score Radio. Wally and Eric back for yet another week as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical, super saturated Minnesota sports scene. And Wally, we're smack dab in the middle of winter. Spring is on the horizon. But there's some good stuff going on with our winter sports teams. Of course, the Minnesota Twins are down there in the Grapefruit League in Florida, getting ready to play some exhibition games. We got a lot to talk about.
We do. The Timberwolves are on top of the West. Gopher men's basketball been playing well. But how about those Minnesota Wild? And I'm going to go particularly what happened on President's Day. I don't know. I know you were at the game. A Monday afternoon tilt. Maybe they should play all their games on Monday afternoons. They score 10 goals in a 10-7 win. Kind of getting back on the right side after losing to Buffalo over the weekend and coming off of a 4-game winning streak. So the question becomes, and again, is this team capable of making a postseason run? I think they're capable of getting into the playoffs. If they can win some games down the stretch here and, if Nashville falters and they need a little bit of help from a couple of other teams. But I think they have the ability to do it. But is it going to help them in the long run?
I still think the big question marks are goaltending, the two goalies.
Yeah.
In the game against Vancouver, the game I was at on Monday, President's Day, where they played like kings.
Right.
Not L.A. Kings or Sacramento Kings, but Kings. I mean, it was a remarkable game. 10-7. But, Philip Gustafson got yanked after 2 periods, and then Marc-Andre Fleury came in and did just enough for the Wild to win. But they have the firepower. I mean, in that game on Monday, you had a hat trick and 6 points from Joel Eriksson Ek. You had a hat trick and 6 points from Kirill Kaprizov. Oh, by the way, Vancouver had a hat trick from J.T. Miller. 3 hat tricks in one game. I believe it's only happened twice in NHL history. But with all that firepower,
right,
it was 8-7 until the final couple of minutes before the Wild got 2 empty net goals to seal the deal. So this is a team with talent, but they're on a defining road trip now, in my opinion, with trips to Winnipeg and Edmonton and Seattle. I think we'll know a little bit more about them in about a week.
Yeah. Do you see them getting into the postseason? And I go back to my original question. Does it even help them at this point? I mean, they've been on this treadmill for how many years now? I mean, they've only been to the Western Conference Finals once. They've never been to the Stanley Cup Finals in their, 23, 24-year history now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you get into the playoffs, you get a couple of home games, and then you're eliminated in the first round. I mean, how many years are we going to go through this same stuff?
Well, it seems to be rinse and repeat with this franchise. And, they need to be able to, find a way to, if you get into the postseason, you got to go on a run.
Right.
You got to excite your fan base. But now the cynic would say, well, you can't do anything if you don't get into the playoffs. And in the NHL now, you can be an 8 seed, like Florida was last spring, and knock out the top team in the NHL in the regular season, Boston. I mean, the Bruins had a historic regular season and went one and done. So it is possible. Doesn't happen every year, though. And the crazy thing about the Wild, I mean, they are a roller coaster team. That Monday game, Vancouver came in with 80 points, most in the NHL, and they get 10 goals.
Yeah.
So they're hard to figure out. They're Rubik's Cube. I mean, I'm not going to tell you I know the answer, but they do have some guys, and they do have some fire on ice. Kirill. Eriksson Ek has had a great season. And Matt Boldy's, a young guy trending up. So, but can they get playoff goaltending, if they make it, from either Marc-Andre Fleury or Philip Gustafson? Because as you know, in the postseason, it's all about
your
goalie.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, well, the other Rubik's Cube, your Minnesota Twins. They started spring training, and they haven't done much in as far as additions go in the postseason. They did pick up my guy Carlos Santana, not the singer, the baseball player.
You've got to change your evil ways.
Yes, who helped Cleveland get to a World Series in 2016, and he's played for a number of teams. He played for Pittsburgh, Kansas City, and finished with Milwaukee.
I think this is Santana number 3 for the Twins. You've had Johan, you've had Danny, now you have Carlos.
Now you have Carlos. This is Santana number 3. But, I mean, other than that, the DeSclafani pickup, bottom of your rotation probably. They haven't really done much as far as making an impact in the postseason or in the offseason. But I don't know. Neither is anybody else in the division for that matter. So they're just looking around and saying, well, Kansas City, Cleveland, Detroit. Maybe Kansas City's done the most. They re-signed Bobby Witt.
The Royals have the highest payroll in the division.
There you go.
I feel like Detroit's getting better, but I'm not ready to crown them AL Central champs. Cleveland puts less capital into their ball club than the Twins do. The Chicago White Sox, historically they try, but historically they fail.
I'm sorry, they're a train wreck.
They are. So 2 words for the Minnesota Twins. If you really want to get over the hump, Blake Snell. Sitting out there, right? He'd be the ace of your rotation if you signed him. He'd be the ace of a lot of rotations. He's going to end up somewhere. He's a lefty. He's been in the World Series. He's had a lot of success. Maybe you can get one of those Carlos Correa one-and-done, two-and-done deals with opt-out clauses and escalators in it and bring him to Minnesota.
I'd like to see him go get Cody Bellinger. I think that's the guy to go get.
So you'd rather have the position player than the stud pitcher?
Yeah, at this point, yeah. I want a guy who can play every day, not necessarily a guy that's going to play every 5 days and might get hurt. Blake Snell's had a history of injuries, although Bellinger has too. So
it's a dice roll with any of this stuff, and I realize a guy like Snell's going to need at least $25 million a year minimum. Yeah. I would think.
Yeah, well, the Twins aren't going to do that, so pie in the sky. All right, I guess we're going to talk some Gopher hoops now because the men's basketball team has been on the incline ever since last year.
Yeah, they are trending up. We'll talk to Mike Grimm, their radio play-by-play voice, coming up here on 10K Takes, your Carlos Santana ticket.
True love stories never have endings. However, they do have beginnings. Congratulations on your engagement. Begin planning your special wedding day at weddingsoflakeville.com, where you'll discover over a dozen reception venues accommodating up to 600 guests. Go to weddingsoflakeville.com and choose settings that are intimate, serene, outdoors, historical, state-of-the-art, traditional, and even country club style. Feel confident. Weddingsoflakeville.com provides recommendations from businesses we know and trust.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect. Maya? Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision. It's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
10,000 Takes continuing along. Wally and Eric with you, and Golden Gopher men's basketball team making some inroads. We've talked about this over the last several weeks. The big win over Michigan State, the almost against Purdue. But they have set themselves up for a possible shot at the postseason. Let's see if our guy Mike Grimm, who does play-by-play on the radio for both basketball and football, agrees that they have a shot, perhaps, to get an NCAA bid. What's it going to take, do you think?
Yeah, I'll start. Good to see you guys. I'll start by saying I think they're in pretty good shape for an NIT berth. There are some new rules this year that I think are going to allow more Power 6 teams into the NIT. Some people don't necessarily like those rules, but those are what they put in. And so I think the chances are good there. So then you're right, Wally. The question is, what happens for an NCAA berth? The Gophers will be hurt because their non-conference strength of schedule's not been very good or wasn't very good. I think that was by design. I think Ben Johnson felt like he needed to get his guys to feel some confidence, build some chemistry, and have some success. And that was a success, I think. And now they're seeing some fruits of that here in the Big Ten. So what to get to the NCAA? I think they're probably going to have to get to 21 wins or so, and they're at 16 now. So that means I would include that counts the Big Ten tournament. And look, who knows? That's basically a de facto home opportunity for maybe 2 or 3 opportunities at the Target Center. If Gopher fans show out on force, that isn't very often at the Big Ten tournament that a team's going to have a significant advantage. And if the Gopher fans show up in that would be the case. And I think this team is showing that it has a shot every night. And so I'm going to put the number at 21. They need to get to 21. They're at 16 now. And quite frankly, that's a tall task, but we'll see if they can get there.
And you mentioned the Big Ten tournament, and it's my opinion that that may have came from Kevin Warren, who, when he was the Big Ten commissioner, had the Minnesota Viking ties. He got the men and the women to play their tournament here in Minneapolis. I think it's great. Do you think it can possibly stay here beyond a year, Mike, the Big Ten tournament?
Well, it's a good question. I think we might see now more rotation. It had mostly been in Chicago and Indianapolis. There was one year it was in Washington, D.C. One year it was at Madison Square Garden. Jim Delaney was hell-bent on getting some New York exposure, and we were out there for one game. The Gophers out there for one game and lost to Rutgers in a Wednesday night game at Madison Square Garden. So it was at those two places. Otherwise, it's almost always been. This will be the 5th city that the men's tournament will be in. I think that for the most part, because of the footprint, you'll see Indy and Chicago still maintain most of the sites. However, now you've added USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. So I could see LA hosting that at some point. I could see maybe Seattle. They've got an arena that can certainly take a basketball event on. And even maybe a state that doesn't have the Big Ten as part of its footprint. Las Vegas, perhaps, could host, I think, not only the basketball tournament, but I think we'll see the football championship game in Las Vegas at some point now with the West Coast edition. And think about that. If you're, just to make something up, Penn State, and you make the Big Ten football championship game, you're flying out to L.A. potentially or Vegas, and it's fine. They're all charter jets, and you do what you do, and bowl games sometimes have long trips anyway. But to answer your question, Eric, I think it'd be great. I think that the underrated part, I haven't heard it talked a lot about here within the local market, and I hope the Gopher marketing people start really pushing the idea that it's a rare opportunity. I mean, when it's in Indianapolis, Purdue can get a lot of people, Indiana can get a lot of people, Illinois can get a lot of people, but mostly that happens when their teams make it to the weekend. The Thursday, Friday stuff is hit and miss. The diehards show up. But never before has this Big Ten tournament been held at a place where fans are within 15 minutes. Yeah. Most of this fan base is going to drive from 20 minutes or closer. And if they can get a Thursday night game against somebody and 12,000 Gopher fans show up, that hasn't happened in this tournament before. And if Minnesota can make a run because of that, that would be great. So I hope that the push is made that, and I get it, I'm not trying to tell people how to spend their money or spend their time, but if you're a Gopher fan, there's a chance, as Wally said, this team could be on the fringe, and 2 de facto home games at the Target Center become wins on a Thursday and a Friday, and you get into the semis. You could all of a sudden find yourself playing in that play-in game in Dayton, or who knows, maybe in a regular first-round game. So I hope there's a push there and people realize what impact they can make. Plus, it's good hoops. I mean, somebody else is going to play as well. You're going to play a good team. There's going to be more, 4 games on Thursday, 4 games on Friday. You hope you avoid Wednesday, and you see where you go.
And the other thing, Mike, is you've got to throw down the gauntlet and make sure there's not more Wisconsin Badger or Iowa Hawkeye fans who come in on I-94 up on I-35 to invade Target Center because they love the Twin Cities.
Yeah, they do. And unfortunately, or fortunately, how you look at it, there's a lot of those folks that already live here and also are within 20 minutes of the Target Center as well.
Alumni.
Alumni that live here, or just even natives. Like Iowa, I grew up in Iowa, as you guys know. There's people that didn't graduate from Iowa but grew up there, and that's kind of the state team. That's like the Vikings or the Twins here. The Hawkeyes is what they have. So even if they didn't go there, that's their team. And maybe they didn't go to college, or maybe they went to a small college or went someplace else. They still will cheer for that hometown team. So I think you'll see that. I also think, not to stray away from the topic, the week before the women's tournament is here, the Big Ten women's tournament, they set the all-time attendance record last year in Minneapolis. So it's back-to-back years in Minnesota. And it was a lot of those Iowa people because of Caitlin Clark. And look, here's the thing. I think you could see ticket demand for that women's tournament greater than for the men's tournament, depending on where that weekend heads. If Caitlin Clark gets her team to the semis and then into the finals, all those people from Iowa will be coming up like it's a football game. And you'll have just basketball folks in general. I mean, right now, Caitlin Clark has sold out every arena that she's played in this year. I mean, she sold out Northwestern, the SeatGeek, StubHub, whatever get-in price for that game at Northwestern. They were averaging like 1,700 fans. Wow. The cheapest get-in price the day of that game, like 2 weeks ago, I think, was something like $180. I mean, she has created just this extreme wave, and she's fantastic to watch. I have to admit, I try to tune in to Peacock or whatever other channel they might be on, because she is fun to watch. And she'll be at Williams Arena here in a couple of weeks on the 28th of February. That game sold out in December for the women, and then of course the following week her and her team will be here for the women's tournament. So there'll be huge demand for that, and I hope the Gopher fans on the men's side really step up and come and support the Gophers when they play in that event.
Do you sense, having been around the team, around Ben Johnson, around the players, an excitement or a feeling like they can get and make a postseason run of some kind?
Yeah, I think there's a belief they're good, which is good, right? I mean, and it isn't look, we've all been around teams that say, hey, we think we're good, and they're not. Like we know they're not, and they try to fake talk. This team's pretty good. It's 16-9. They're 7-7 in the Big Ten. The league's probably not what it was or what it has been, maybe in terms of the very top. But I'll tell you what it is there are no get well night games. Everybody's good enough to beat another team. Ohio State was second to last, and they beat Purdue on Sunday. And that Ohio State team comes to Minnesota on Thursday of this week, and that's going to be an important game. So, I think it's going to be, I think they have belief that they're a good team, and that's important, especially when they have won some games. You guys referenced the Michigan State game, and that was a big home win. They've got a couple of road wins at Penn State and at Michigan, and they played at Purdue really tough. I mean, that game was down to the wire. Purdue, I think, led by 2 with 4 minutes to go in a building that they had not trailed at halftime yet this year, and the Gophers led at halftime there. So I think they do, Wally, have that belief that they can make a run. Now, whether that's in the NIT, the NCAA, and the Big Ten tournament, what have you, I think the good thing is being around that team and seeing it is that they have genuine belief. They believe they're pretty good. They believe they can win. And look, that's the first big step, I think, when you start to try to build this program. And maybe it hasn't come along as fast as some people wanted with Ben Johnson, but I think right now we are seeing progress, man. I mean, this team has had it's night and day from last year to this year. Year one was better than year two, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes you have to take some lumps, and these those 4 freshmen, 3 came back from last year. They took their lumps last year, and now we're seeing Pharrell Payne and Braden Carrington and Joshua Ola-Joseph. Obviously, Garcia's got experience, and then some of these transfers, and they've got, I think, a future NBA prospect in Cam Christie, who's a true freshman, the younger brother of LA Laker player Max Christie. So yeah, I think they think that they're good. Now, whether that results in where they want to go, the calendar will tell us that.
Well, Mike, I don't personally think that a trip to the NIT would necessarily be a bad thing. It would get more Gopher fans to see some postseason basketball. Hopefully they get some home games. We appreciate you spending some time with us. Enjoy the rest of the season, whether it ends with an NIT or NCAA. It's been a fun year for sure.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, always great to see you guys. The more basketball in March, the better. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. No question. Thanks, Mike. He is Mike Grimm. He does play-by-play for Gopher men's basketball and Gopher football with us here on 10,000 Takes. More after this. Stay with us.
Finding the ideal place to stay is important for business travelers. Lakeville, Minnesota is conveniently located off I-35, just south of the Twin Cities, with a variety of hotel choices. Lakeville offers convenient amenities such as shopping, walking trails, golf, and more. Our unique meeting spaces, historic downtown, live music, and over 60 dining options are sure to impress. Book your next stay in Lakeville and experience convenience, comfort, and quality. Find your perfect hotel at visitlakeville.org.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earrings. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Welcome back. And I guess a Minnesota hero made good on a promise, or a desire, if you will, to get a major event here in Minnesota. And that was Jessie Diggins, who won the gold medal. I think it was one of the first ever gold medals for a woman in Olympic history in cross-country skiing for the U.S. And this past weekend at Worth Park in Minneapolis, they held a major event. The World Cup of cross-country skiing was there, and she medaled. She got the bronze medal in the 10K. So great event, good for the sport, good for Jessie, and I think everybody was happy, especially the fact they got some snow a couple days beforehand.
Yeah,
too.
that was the Valentine's Day gift.
Yes.
Where it was, depending on where you were in the Twin Cities, anywhere from 5 to 9 inches of snow. So that definitely made it seem more like winter and the kind of backdrop you'd want for cross-country skiing.
Yeah, no question. Okay, your Timberwolves were off for a while because of the All-Star game. Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards, Cat and Ant-Man, if you will, both playing in Indianapolis. Ant was actually part of the three-point contest, kind of. And Chris Finch was the head coach of the West. So that's the first time that's happened since, guess when? When Flip Saunders did it back in 2004 when the Wolves and KG and company made a run. So,
yeah, the T-Wolves have not been on this kind of a national stage in decades. And
20 years.
I think people who follow the NBA, and let's face it, Los Angeles, New York City, Chicago, Miami, it tends to be a league driven by major markets. But now they're starting to take notice of Minnesota. Everybody knows about Ant, how explosive he is, and Cat, how much he can do from beyond the arc or down low on the block. Chris Finch getting some overdue attention. He's certainly a candidate for Coach of the Year. So we'll see how it plays out the rest of the way. But, yeah, they were on the All-Star stage in Indianapolis. Ant, I guess you could say, made a mockery of the three-point competition, shooting the ball with his left hand.
Yeah.
He went southpaw.
yeah. Well, he made a mockery of that, and then the players made a mockery of the game, like they've been for the last few years now. I'm ready to see the game go away.
You simply have to look at that game and not take it seriously.
Well, exactly, because the players don't take it seriously.
No, and then I would say this, if you lived in Indianapolis and you brought the kids, that would be the value of that event. You maybe would get a little bit closer to these guys than you would in a normal game. But
I'd like to see them compete a little bit. There's just it's just, oh, God. Anyway, I'm too much of a basketball guy to watch that and not be bothered by it. Okay, speaking of being bothered, are you bothered by the fact that the Minnesota Vikings are in such flux right now with their quarterback situation? Because, one day I read a headline that Justin Jefferson's not going to hang around and if it's not Kirk Cousins. The next day, well, he's going to be here if he gets the money. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Then the next day, the Vikings aren't going to pay Kirk Cousins. I mean, what in the world is going on?
Yeah, and I think the Minnesota Vikings want to send out all sorts of smoke signals. They don't want to tip their hand. NFL New Year begins in mid-March. I know you're going to have a big bash on NFL New Year's Eve. Big party at his crib. Here's where the concern has to be. Look around the NFC North. Jordan Love in Green Bay clearly looks like a guy who's built for the long haul. Now, Jared Goff coming off a solid season in Detroit. Now, Chicago is in flux, too. What are the Bears going to do with Justin Fields? I think they should keep him and add more pieces around him. But if he's on the market, he could end up in Pittsburgh or somewhere like that. But the two teams you're looking at trying to surpass are set at quarterback right now, and the Vikings aren't.
Very true.
Which, that's been said for decades.
Yeah, and by the way, that's not their only issue. They've got a lot of other things.
Yes.
All right, we're going to patch up this show when we come back. Takes of the day coming up next. Stay with us.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
10K takes on television. The fun and games continue. Final segment of this week's show. So the mood meter going to tell us if you're a cranky Yankee, a sarcastic Sam, grumpy Guardian, or dare I say it, maybe you're a happy camper. What is it?
We are kind of the Gong Show of sports shows, aren't we? Something like that. Well, some good news came our way roughly a week or so ago. Rob Manfred, the current commissioner of Major League Baseball, has announced that he will be retiring. Not a moment too soon, I might add. 2029, that's, I believe, January of 2029 when his current contract runs out. Well, Rob, what have you done for me lately? What have you done to Major League Baseball? What have you done to this American pastime that I don't recognize many times? Let's start out with, and you mentioned this on the radio, it looks like he's going to allow the Oakland A's to move from Oakland to Las Vegas. That's a travesty. He's going to allow the Kansas City Royals to move out of Kauffman Stadium. I know you're upset by that one. He's the guy that is allowing baseball to have a ghost runner at second base to start extra innings. Really? Sounds like Little League to me. Actually, Little League doesn't allow that garbage. He's a guy that allows interleague play to go on and on and on, and you got to play everybody every year. I would much rather see the Yankees in extra time, the Rangers in extra time, the Red Sox, the Orioles, you name it. I'd rather see any of those teams than see just about any National League team come in here. And here's the one that's really sticking in my craw. I know he's the one that helped force Cleveland to go from the Indians to the Guardians. Well, he's not allowing Cleveland to have Larry Doby a Larry Doby day. This guy was the first African American in the American League. Happened just 2 months after Jackie Robinson Day. So you know what, Rob Manfred? Don't let it hit you on the way out the door. That's what I think.
Well, let's check that mood meter out. Yes. Oh, yeah, just what I thought. In the red zone, Grumpy Guardian.
Pegged it.
No shock there. Okay, well, my take of the day, I'm going to talk about preserving history.
Okay.
Right here in the Twin Cities.
Okay.
Dinkytown, U of M campus. There's a place called The Barn. I know you like going there.
I do.
I do, too. Gopher basketball programs play there, wrestling, all sorts of other stuff has happened in the 96-year history of the Barn. You go in there and you can almost see the ghosts. It's got charm. It's got character. It's organic. The fan noise is real. So there's a great history in that venue. But the future of the Barn is foggy. Are they going to build a new one? Are they going to renovate the current one? What's going to happen? That's the big debate now with Gopher Sports. Well, I'm hoping they do not build a brand new arena because then it would be cavernous. It wouldn't have character. It would be sweet heavy for all the fat cats. It would be soulless, basically.
I agree.
Keep the Barn. Tinker with it. Renovate it. Get it up to snuff. I'm okay with that. But do not tear down the Barn. That would be, I think, a travesty for the U of M and the state of Minnesota. Put it on the National Register of Historic Places. Do what you got to do. If we got to get Governor Tim Walz in there to keep the Barn standing, then do it. But I want to see games in the Barn not only now, but moving forward.
Yeah, better barn.
Yeah,
Please.
better barn. Good one. All right, let's FedEx out those thank yous. One to Mike Grimm, Paul Langfellow, David Weld for Wally. I'm Eric saying so long. This is 10K Takes, your sports